I will look for NSTV thumbs up. Okay. I'm just waiting for a thumbs up on people and we'll start. URN NSTV, we got thumbs up? Thank you. Sorry, student voice thumbs up? I asked for thumbs up before thumbs up. Thank you. Well, welfare and wellbeing people, thumbs up? They're all good? We'll go through everyone now. All good? URN thumbs up? That's URN thumbs up. NSTV thumbs up? Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. My name is Ashley Storer-Smith. I am your Deputy Returning Officer and also your host for this evening for the University Park Question Time. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you very much for people who are tuning in live on URN and NST. We are going to start in the order that we posted on the URN SU_Student Voice Instagram, which is the Activities Officer. The Activities Officer makes sure that all social activity within the union is led by students, including student groups, volunteering, welcome, events, and other social activity. You'll work closely with leaders of student societies, student-run services, and associated representative bodies to make sure the SU is working effectively for their needs and supporting them in their core aims. So we will start with our first candidate, who will do their 60-second opening speeches.
Hello. Ooh, nice. Right, okay, so hello, I'm Dan Hack, my pronouns are he, him, and yeah, I'm running to be your next activities officer, fortunately for you lot. So yeah, basically been in a society for the past couple of years, been working with the SU a lot, so I do sort of understand what society leaders want from the SU. So that's one thing that I really want to build in. There's three main sort of points with my manifesto that I'm really going to try to bring in. One of them is spreading out the community of the SU. Right now, it feels like it's very centered in this building. That's going to change. We're going to spread it everywhere. Everyone gets a piece of the SU. How lucky. Another thing we're going to do is backing societies. Right now, societies do get support, but they need so much more. It's stressful. It's hard. Trust me, when I came in, I was clueless. So more guidance, more support, easier forms. And that leads lovely and very nicely onto my final point of reducing SU bureaucracy and paperwork. It's just too much paperwork. We cut it down. We make it easier to work with the SU. That's all.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the pre-prepared questions, and then we will go to questions from the audience. So the first pre-prepared question for the Activities Officer is how could we better recognise student volunteering within the Students' Union?
Yeah, so earlier on, actually, I was actually looking at, I was like, right, let me actually see what they've got for the volunteering stuff. And I went on the SU website, did a bit of looking. And to be frankly honest, there is genuinely a lot the SU does. The issue is there's not really much publicity about it. And I think that this is an issue with a lot of things when it comes to the SU and all the amazing things it does. It's just people don't know about it. So, of course, a lot of it is going to be firstly spreading out information about these volunteering schemes, getting more people on it. And then another bit was, okay, for Global Buddies, for example, I think that's a brilliant scheme, and I have heard a lot about it, in all fairness, because one of my friends accidentally signed up for it. One thing that would be really nice to do, though, would actually be to show what they're doing. Like, say, go to these sort of meetings, see if they're okay with being filmed. NSTV could go in and film. Impact can write an article about it. Anything to just publicize it and show that these volunteering schemes exist and that they're doing pretty cool stuff. So spreading the word.
Thank you very much. We will now go on to the second and final pre-prepared question for the Activities Officer candidates, which is the University of Nottingham have nationally awarded performance societies. How can we better recognise and utilise these groups effectively?
Yeah, so another thing is Welcome Week, for example. These performance societies are all performing. It's absolutely brilliant. And then you don't really see much of them again until, say, the end of the year during something like Activities Awards. That's something that should be changed up as well. So firstly, the SU, they run fairs throughout the year. Imagine how nice it would be to just have, let's say, one or two performance societies just performing like at the fair during that time. That way, when people come in, they can see them performing. You could have charity events running as well. Say if you were to have a very sort of mini festival on the Downs or somewhere like that come summertime, you could have actual performance societies performing along with other societies like music ones. So really bringing in those performance societies and being able to show what they're doing, once again, goes back into the publicity as well, using NSTV, using URN, using Impact. We have some like award-winning student media services. People don't know about that, and that's something that has to change. It's really spreading the word around and showing them this is what you have. So yeah.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of our pre-prepared questions for our Activities Officer candidate. If we do have any questions from the crowd, please put your hand up now, and we'll get one of the lovely Student Voice members of team to grab one of our microphones and run them across to you. Amazing, thank you. Yes. So if you give us a second, so we'll run it across. Please announce your name and your pronouns and ask your question. As I said, as the host of this event, I may ask you to reword your question to make sure it's available for all candidates to answer. Thank you.
Or one of them. Sorry. I'm Joe Paternoster. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the current Activities Officer. So my question is, so you said there previously that you'd sort of use the media groups as a means for promoting different things that we do, but you also said as well that not enough people know about the media groups. So how are we going to promote the vessels that we're using for promotion, if that makes any sense?
Okay. I'll sum up that question. So how are you going to better use our media groups and how can we promote them generally if people don't know about them already, wider from the Portland building?
Of course, so this will work from the start of the year. We'll be getting word out about these media groups, about the achievements of the media groups. This is going to be going beyond Portland building, so say everything from posters to banners to anything that we can put out outside of Portland building to be like, we have these media groups, people can volunteer in it, but you can also tune in. For example, you can tune into the radio shows, but personally anyway, I don't really know where to do it, and this is the issue. It's accessibility to just find ways to do it, and I'm sure there's a very easy link to find. It needs to be more clearer. Something as simple as making it easy to find, say, the link tree, throwing it on posters, throwing that around campus. Next thing you know, you've got loads of more listeners. It's all about upping the engagement there, making people more aware of it from the start, and then out of that, we can then use the student media groups to publicize all these events and these opportunities that the SU is showing. So very much just from the start, pushing it out, making sure that people have actually heard about it and keeping that actively going throughout the year. We want it to be constantly growing. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions from the floor? We have time for at least one more question. Okay, I see no hands. I will read out, of course, the candidates for this election. So this is the Activities Officer election. So our candidates are Daniel Hack and reopen nominations, also known as Ron. We will now take a short break before we come back at 1:45 for our next candidates, which is the Community Officer candidates. Thank you. We are now going to start the community officer election candidates. So I will ask candidates to say their name and their pronouns, and then they will have 60 seconds to talk about what they are standing for. So I will start with yourself.
Can you guys hear me? Hello, I am Therine Coley, and you can just call me Coley. And my pronouns are she and her, and I'm good with they, them as well. Do we go? Okay. I would try to make the living spaces a more fulfilling and fun experience to be in. I would try to make the economic crisis less daunting by taking measures that would help ease the living costs, such as accessibility to free meals, more awareness, help with part-time employment, and so support groups, social groups, just making talking easier, and so on. I would try to make the healthcare situation more accessible and less ignorant towards the student needs, and provision of basic resources such as medicines and diagnosis treatment more easier. And lastly, vote for me because including all the other agendas will be putting in place for next year. You also really like our mascot, which is Tickles, which is a cute bunny with a rainbow beanie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll now move on to your second candidate.
It's working? Ooh, okay. Hi, my name's Poppy. I use they, them pronouns. And you should vote for me to be your next community student representative because student life currently is not what it should be. Students are exploited in university halls for their rent, exploited off campus for their rent, in purpose-built student accommodation, in HMOs with private landlords. Sutton Bonington lacks quality off-campus accommodation completely. As the cost of living crisis continues, higher education becomes more and more inaccessible for lower income students. Basics that we rely on, such as transport, is becoming an even bigger issue for students to afford. And someone needs to make sure that we're hitting the carbon neutral city target by 2028. I will fight the university to deliver long-term solutions to these issues, not just slapping a plaster on a broken leg. And I'll do everything within my power to ensure that student life in Nottingham is safe and accessible.
Thank you very much. We do have another candidate in this election, Hassan Nisar, but unfortunately due to illness, they are unable to attend. So we'll start with the first of the pre-prepared questions for the community officer candidate. And this is the question. It is important that we understand how we can improve the hall's experience from student feedback. What do you think it would be the best way to gather this feedback? Okay. And I'll start with the first question. Start when you're ready.
My name's Poppy. I use they, them pronouns. I think we need to incentivize students to respond to calls for feedback by using prize draws and stuff like that. But ultimately, we need to publicize how university management has acted and responded to the feedback that students are giving. I think the main reason why people don't give feedback is because they don't feel their voices are being heard and recognized. So if we are showing students how that feedback is being taken into consideration and being enacted on, then they're more likely to give feedback.
Thank you very much. And it'll be the same question for our candidate here.
I am Therine, and my pronouns are she, they, and I think forms, online surveys, use of social media are part of Instagram because I feel like Instagram is overused and a lot of my friends currently, they're not even using it. So LinkedIn and just other stuff. And then ResX talking to people in person would be really helpful because the most engagement that I have done personally with ResX has been in person, and that sort of feels natural. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we'll move on to our second and last pre-prepared question for the community officer candidates. Students of faith have trouble accessing the facilities they need on campus. What would you like the university to do to better facilitate these students? We'll start with this candidate.
So I'm Therine, my pronouns are she, they, and I think we need to have a more neutral attitude towards just all faiths, and we need to make it more easier to talk to. So anybody from any faith can come to any of the staff, the other stakeholders, reps, and they can just talk about their concerns and about their issues, and what they would feel more comfortable with in terms of practicing their faith openly. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And it'll be the same question for this candidate.
Poppy, pronouns they, them. I think we could possibly arrange transport to respective houses of worship so it's easier for students of faith to travel to and from where they'd like to pray, and also working closely with local faith groups and corresponding houses of worship to better incorporate students into the wider Nottinghamshire community.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to see if there are any questions from the crowd. Thank you. I'll take this question here first.
Hiya. I was just wondering if either of the candidates had any thoughts on the new student living strategy.
Yes, of course. So, just as a bit of background, the student living strategy is focusing on student accommodation within the local community. And I will pass, of course, to this candidate first.
Poppy, pronouns they, them. Sorry, URN and NSTV. I think it's a bit dog shit. I think there are certain parts of the approach that are okay. Their approach to neighbourliness is quite good. The bit about working with taking restorative justice approach to noise complaints and stuff is a really good part of incorporating students into the local community. But just pushing for more privately owned student housing is just not an effective or long-term solution to the student housing crisis. We need to really reevaluate our approach to student housing and not just fob students off to like unite and build another massive building of low quality and charge students way too much rent to live in it.
Thank you. Just before we move on, for Ofcom regulations, I would like to apologise on behalf of the candidate, NSTV, URN, and the Students' Union for the language. I'll now move on to yourself.
So I think, firstly, there have been a lot of places in the last year where there was construction going on and students have had a lot of trouble with that. So the noise complaints, everything, that needs to be sorted, which is something that I would like to take up. Then there is a lack of mixed spaces. People are usually, they end up staying in these places with other people of the same community, of the same ethnicity, which is something that's not very good in terms of a place that's supposed to be international. So I think that should be looked into. Most of the people from my country, India, they have ended up having they've been in groups with other Indians, which is fine. But I think we should be more open to making friends with everyone.
Thank you very much. And I believe that was the second hand up there, so I'll go to there first, and then we'll chat for time.
Hi, do I need to say my name as well?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ben, pronouns he, him, and I just want to ask, how do you guys ensure that remote students and students who commute from outside of Nottingham still feel a part of the student community?
Okay, so how do you feel remote, or sometimes called distance learning students? Yes, you'll be go first. And commuter students can feel integrated within student life and student community. Go ahead first.
Hi, Ben. So first, I think the transport to and from the city, that should be made free, because that's a huge issue. I've wanted to go to the city a few times, even though I live near Jubilee, and I need to pay for that, which is really unfair. That's the only place that the buses don't go to without payment. So that should be looked into. There should be more events that are happening in the city centre or in the areas that are a little away from both the campuses, both the main campuses, and towards Sutton Bennington. Yeah, and then online events should be happening more, which is not something that happens.
Thank you very much. And same question for this candidate.
Poppy, they, them. I think a good way to tackle that would be to hold some events for distance learning students, like social events in person on multiple campuses, because they'll be living, you know, in the Nottinghamshire area, to get people all in one place so they can mingle. That's something like, I think a lot of what bonds the majority of students is their living situation. Like a lot of my friends I have now, I have from halls, and a lot of my closest friends are my flatmates. But obviously with distance learning, you don't really have that. So getting distance learning students together regularly on multiple campuses might be a good way to tackle that issue.
Thank you very much. And we'll be able to take one last question from the audience. Is there any other question? Yeah, thank you. Person at the back. Remember to say your name and pronouns before you start. Thank you very much.
Joe Paternoster, pronouns are he, him. What do you think is the sort of biggest issue facing sort of students going out at night in the city centre, establishments, sort of nightclub venues? What do you think are the biggest issues facing students in going to, working at venues like this? Just anything around that, basically.
Okay. So what are the biggest issues around kind of night out and nights out for students? We'll go with yourself.
Poppy, they, them. Thanks for asking that slayful question. I think ultimately, and this is not a happy answer, but it comes down to the issue of rape culture that we're all living in. Like, I could say, oh, it's groping, it's spiking, it's harassment, it's bouncers chucking students left, right, and centre, it's venues prioritising profit over the well-being of the people at the venues. But really, it just comes down to a culture where we, you know, especially, and it's amplified in the nighttime economy quite excessively by darkness, alcohol, etc., where we just don't treat each other with that much respect. Like, especially men don't always treat women and people of marginalised genders on nights out that well. And that's an issue that's really complicated. And I've actually spent a lot of time specifically on spiking, trying to tackle that. And I have come to the conclusion that it's really complicated. And the best approach is a sort of holistic approach that focuses on advocating for education and advocating to eradicate this rape culture that we all find ourselves living in.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next candidate.
So I definitely agree with what she said, but I think it's more of a person-to-person issue than a men-to-women issue. Also, I think the university needs to be more active to just taking charge of things that shouldn't be happening. For example, not even just the night culture, but the other day my scooter got stolen outside of George Green, and I tried reaching out to the university security, and they were meh about it. They said that they couldn't do anything. They're not very involved or responsive with what happens inside of the university or outside, and I think that needs to change. Even things that are recorded on camera can just so very easily get lost inside of the premises. So I think it needs to just be like more fluid, getting to like talking to the university about our problems and getting an answer back.
Thank you very much. And just to finish up this time, I would like to, of course, announce the candidates again for Community Officer. So we had Tarveen Kohli, Poppy Reid Pitt, Hassan Nassar, and reopen nominations. We're now going to be moving on to the Education Officer candidates. So we'll take a short kind of 30 to 60 seconds to transfer between candidates, and then we'll be back. Thank you very much. If everyone could take to your seats, we'll be starting the Education Officer candidate Q&A. So, the Education Officer represents the academic interests of all students. They'll work closely with key senior university staff to create change within students' academic experiences and within faculty representatives to understand the issues facing students to make the changes needed. The Education Officer sits on the highest academic boards of the university to make sure students' voices are heard by the university when decisions on their education are being made. We have 3 candidates in this selection. So we have Tu An Do, Nguyen Phong Lee, and Maddie Dinage. Unfortunately, Maddie is unable to attend, but they have submitted their statement and questions in advance. So we'll now go to the opening speeches, and I'll start with this candidate here, and I'll start the timer after you say your name and pronouns.
Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Tu An Do, and my pronoun is she or her. So I'm running for the position of Education Officer, and my major is Master in TESOL. So I have 3 years experience in education as a teacher and syllabus designer. And I'm also an education representative, so I'm keenly aware of our need and concern. I could take a step closer if I work as an education officer to one of the values that all of us are taught is creating a better environment for studying and researching. So I hope that in my power, so I can design like more effective curriculum, ensure enough one-on-one tutorials, or reduce the class between the course module and the burden of school attendance. Besides that, I will try to work with the other department to make sure that every student voice can be heard. So I'm committed to working around the clock to create an education system which is equitable, inclusive, and responsive to the student needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the next candidate. I will start the timer after you say your names and pronouns.
Hello, my name is Nguyen Phong Lee. My pronoun is she, her. And I am the MA student of Digital Teaching and Learning. Right now, I am running for the position of Education Officer. As a previous class tutor and writing center consultant at my undergrad university, and also with my current involvement as a course representative and international student ambassador, I would like to use my involvement at UON, as well as the previous higher education experiences in the US and South Korea, to target, firstly, diversity as in decolonization of curriculum. Secondly, having the better student feedback rate from activities and accessibility. And third, the academic part-time jobs for practicing and benefiting from the high research power at UON. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll now move on to our third candidate, and I'll be reading out their statement, which is Maddie Dinage. Hello, I'm Maddie, she, her. I believe that the education should be accessible, liberating, and representative of all experiences. If I'm elected, I would like to review curriculum reading lists to ensure that historically marginalized voices are represented by course teachings, bring awareness to the legacy of British colonialism, holding talks with BAME guest speakers to challenge racism within universities, ensure the terminology used by the university is inclusive and representative of the SU values, as language often encodes oppressive power structures, continue to work with demilitarized UON, ensuring that graduate schemes promoted by the university are safe and ethical, strengthen the relationship between the SU and the UCU to aid striking lecturers in their fight for fair pay and secure working contracts, and finally, work alongside student activist groups and course representatives to ensure that students' concerns are heard and addressed, no matter what campus they are situated on. We'll now move on to the pre-prepared questions. So our first question is, the education officer is key for representing students at the university. How would you ensure an impactful relationship between the university and the Students' Union? I will now read out the answer from Maddie Dinage. The recent SU referendum showed that 82% of students who voted in favour of lecturer strike action. There is an overwhelming sense of solidarity among students regarding support for industrial action, as students and lecturers alike strive to create a space where education is safe, fair, and inclusive for all. Therefore, I think we should be working alongside teaching staff to strengthen the relationship between the SU and the UCU so we can educate students on how they can best support staff. Through this unity, we can demand real change from the university board to improve education for both students and staff. I will now move on to this candidate to answer their question.
Hello, my name is Nguyen Phuong Lê. I pronounce it she, her. To answer this question, I would like to start from the current position that I have at UON. As a current student, course representative, and international student ambassador, I have observed the effort of the university and student union to work with students, and some lacking that can be fulfilled quicker and more effective when I practice my plant and communication skills as an education officer. Together as student unions officers, I would like to use my voice to further gravitate students' interests, well-being, and development to highlight its credential to the university. Student union can develop even more deeply under my contribution as an education officer with the idea I have introduced in my manifesto. Firstly, the diversity as in my background as Vietnamese student in the US, South Korea, and the UK in the higher education level, and cultural awareness as a former president of the International Student Union at my undergrad university at Northern Kentucky University, and zealousness for internationalization in curriculum designing as in encouragement for more international and people of color representatives, and popularity of office hours for student drop-in sections. I would also like to propose more academic part-time jobs for students on campus, which is not that many at the moment. As this university is known for its research power, students should benefit from this by applying their knowledge into their career. So for example, postgrad students can be the class tutor for the undergrad student, or the undergrad student in their second or third year can be the class mentor for the freshman. This can also help with relieving the cost of crisis. So in short, cooperation with the university and with the students' well-being and academic interests in mind are my key visions for this education officer position. Thank you.
And we'll now move on to this candidate for the same question.
Okay, so my name is Tuan Do, and my pronoun is she or her. So to answer this question, I do believe that to ensure the impactful relationship between the university and student union, not only from my position, but also from the others elective officials. So, okay, so at my position, I think I need to become a communication channel to ensure that ideas or feedback or issues or criticism from every student could be exchanged between the student union and the university to inform some development and challenges. I have to work with the student union to establish some feedback mechanisms to make sure that all the student voice can be heard and acted by the university administration. And I will work collaboratively with the university administration as well to organize some event to bring the student and staff together. So from that we can foster the sense of community. And I think I should be transparent about all of the activities and feedback received from the student and provide regular updates. So from that, the student union union executive and the wider student body can listen to all the voice, and together we can create better environment. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the second and final pre-prepared question for our education officer candidates. Medic students often find it hard to make time for student voice and feedback systems due to their contact time. How would you approach this issue? And we'll start with this candidate.
Okay, so my name is Tuan, and my pronoun is she or her. So I think to address these issues, I believe that the university and student union should work together to create a range of different feedback systems that cater to the needs of medic students. I think maybe we should have some quick survey. For example, we have some yes/no question and one open-end question. And as some kind of we need to improve, so maybe they can leave some comment for each one that they would like to improve. And I also consider about choosing the time to ask the student to fill the survey is also important. Maybe we should try to let the student complete between their lectures, or maybe asynchronous recording system, which allow the student to record their comments at their own pace. Online survey is good, but sometimes we shouldn't require them to do too much because they don't have time and maybe that kind of things. So I think that maybe we have three kind of One after the half of semester, one is the final one, and one is after the final submission for their assignment or coursework. I think this kind of maybe the feedback we receive may be more reliable. And for some students, they couldn't provide the feedback at that time, so maybe we should have some text message or email to remind them, but not on the same day, maybe a few days later or maybe the next day. And one more thing, the teacher should have the right to check how many students complete to make sure that every student can be, the work can be heard. Because some students, they will not try to fill the survey at that time, so maybe the teacher should try to have the right to check that. And then also at the course rep and edu rep should collaborate to create more physical forum. So from there, we can sit together, talk together, and raise something that we still have some question or problem that we would like to solve. So thank you.
And we'll move on to this candidate.
Hello, my name is Nguyen Phương. My pronoun is she, her. So, in my opinion, not just medic students who don't have enough time. If getting student feedback doesn't appeal to students, the general rule of thumb is it will get swept under the rug. And especially also for the same case for postgrad students, many think that changes may not affect them immediately and immensely, plus the fear of confrontational from many cultural backgrounds. These ideas may hinder the students' feedback rate. So my idea is to, again, use the QR code that we already have done as a course representative, but we can also do it a little better. For example, we can have these codes on the commons tables in the building, and we can also spice it up by create a short and small animation that pops up after the class lecture that show the QR code so that the student can input their feedback. And the feedback also based on a very short survey, what they're happy and what they're unhappy with, or it can be based on the Likert rating system from 1 to 5, what do you like, what do you don't like about today. Or we can also give away small snacks like assorted candies that contain in a jar that have the QR code on it, so that if students take the candies, they may want to scan the QR code as well, and then also talk to the professor. And again, to make it quick and interesting for not just medic students, but also as many students as possible. The idea also circle back to the payment for the professors and the staff member at the university. So we may want to encourage the staff member and university professors to talk to their students and learn about what works and what doesn't work for them. However, it circles back to the low rate of wage, the current living wage that is low for them. So we would want to have more, we would want to have more fair pay so that workers are more likely to be enthusiastic with their jobs if their pay is sufficient to fund their life and passion for the workplace. And all of these ideas may need to have permission from the school board and the professors to put forth. However, I think it is feasible as it benefits the students to see their voice heard and the university staff members concerned to offer solution to this inquiry. Thank you.
And we'll now move on to Maddie Dinger's answer. There is no doubt that students want to create positive change, but it can be difficult to find the time. When we do get a break from studying, we certainly don't want to spend an hour writing pages of detailed feedback. Online questionnaires with incentives such as prize draws are a great way to encourage students to give us their feedback without needing to take too much time out of their day. These should remain quick and accessible to complete, even for those with a busy timetable. Using multiple choice style questions that can be answered in no more than 5 minutes is the most efficient way to encourage students to use their voice. In the interest of time, we will only take one question from the crowd. I see that hand there. To ensure that everyone can answer a question, we'll get someone new.
Hello, my name is James. My pronouns are he, him. With the current state of the graduate employment market being so competitive as it is, what do you think, or how do you think students can best prepare themselves for life after, or work after studying?
So, The question is, how can students best prepare for life after studying due to the competitive job market? I'll start with yourself.
Hi, and I really like this question because as an international student, I can feel this very hard to the heart because it's not just me competing with other international students, also competing with other students from the UK as well. My suggestion is to make use of the all career service resources from the university, as in I have seen them doing pretty well in the range of having career fairs, offerings, career services, and also the uni terms that you can think of. And it also comes back to the idea that I have proposed is to have more academic part-time jobs on campus. I would like to pitch this idea to the university board so that students can both gain experience before graduating and also earn some money on top of that. Thank you.
I'll move on to this candidate.
Okay, so my name is Duendo and my pronoun she's or her. So to answer this question, I believe that I will try to work with the career department to make sure that we will try to maybe create more chance or opportunity for the student after graduating. They will have a chance to ask some kind of question about the applying or maybe how to write CV or something like that to make sure that their CV can stand out to compare to other candidates in the same field or same position. And one more thing that I think, there's one more thing that the university do really well is about the career event. So I think that if I am this kind of position, I will try to keep this kind of event, and I will try to broaden that, not only about like some soft skill, but also some hard skill, and then from that, the candidate or maybe our student, especially the international student, can be like feel a part of this kind of competitive market, and from that together. We can try to create as much as we can to help our students, not only in UK, but also the international students can feel that they be a part of the community, of this school. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder that all the candidates within the Education Officer election are Tuan Do, Nguyen Phong Lee, Maddie Dinage, and reopen nominations. We all take a slightly longer break now, so people can stretch their legs and go to the toilet, and we'll come back at 6:25. So we can take a 5-minute break before we move on. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to be starting in a second, so please take your seats. Open your revels now so you don't make a noise while we're working. Perfect, thank you. And we're going to move now on to the Liberation Officer candidates. So, the Liberation Officer oversees all of our equity, diversity and inclusion work through both direct activities and supporting the part-time officers. You'll hold the university to account around diversity and inclusion within meetings, lead on the development of the history months and key dates in the Liberation calendar, and work with the leadership team on the implementation of the Students' Union EDI strategy. The candidates will say their 60-second speeches, and the time will start after they say their name and their pronouns. And we'll start with this candidate here.
Hi, I'm Noah. My pronouns are she, her. So I'm running for Liberation Officer because I came to university as a queer woman from a religious minority ethnic background who was also facing chronic illness, and I quickly experienced feelings of isolation and alienation. And I then realised that these struggles were part of a bigger picture, and so many other students were feeling this way and were feeling increasingly frustrated with the university support services. I pledged, if elected as Liberation Officer, to consider all marginalised students and their voices. I believe that my experience as Women's Officer will enable me to effectively empower these voices and create realistic and achievable change. I also know that I don't understand all experiences of marginalisation, but I'm a great listener, and I know that I want to find out what I don't know about student experience to be able to empower voices of difference to make a difference and facilitate dialogue and change.
And we will now move on to our next candidate.
Hi, my name is Ayomide. I'll say it as many times as you need to get it right. My pronouns are he, they. I'm running for Liberation Officer because I've had so much experience working with students of marginalized backgrounds, and I would like to be able to continue that work as long as I possibly can. The main points of my manifesto are to increase mutual aid for to reduce the effects of the cost of living crisis, encourage protests for students who feel as though their voices are not being heard through bureaucracy, to increase the accessibility, to better the accessibility needs of students with visible and invisible disabilities, and to also create and fund safe spaces for marginalized groups who feel as though they are isolated during their student experience.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the first of two pre-prepared questions. It is important that we ensure all students feel welcome at the university, especially when they start in September. How could the Students' Union engage underrepresented students from day one? Start when you're ready.
One of the main things I'm really passionate about is having a diversity fair running alongside the welcome fair at the beginning of the year, because as someone who's worked on the committee for QPOC and FEMSOC, I noticed that we tend to go unnoticed at these big welcome fairs that don't really center our experiences. So I think working towards having a space that highlights the work that we do from the beginning is something that needs to be done. Furthermore, before students even enroll in the uni, I feel like tours should be given to students of marginalized experiences to make it feel as though this space is somewhere they should be, highlight the work of these societies that focus on their experiences, and places in Nottingham that are welcoming to them and can be a sort of reprieve for them.
Thank you. That'll be the same question for this candidate.
So I believe that underrepresented students are those students that are going to feel most isolated and alienated when first coming to university, and therefore they should be at the forefront of our mind coming into September. So I'd firstly like to begin with Welcome Week, which I think currently needs a lot of changing to be more accessible for all students. I personally was working at the Welcome Week fair, the Freshers' Fair, and like the sensory issues I was experiencing, and from other people I spoke to were experiencing similar things. like they didn't feel that it was accessible or inclusive, and that therefore has an effect for the rest of the year. Those students are not going to feel able to join those societies and get involved because they were never even there from the day one. So they're just put at the back of the race line from day one, basically. So I would propose to change the structure of how Freshers' Fair works to ensure that it's accessible for all. Secondly, I'd also interact more with halls. I think that we need greater support and well-being considerations for students entering, especially in those first few weeks and even the first few months. Lastly, I'd also like there to be a great emphasis on safe nights out and inclusive nights out, which aren't just about drinking, clubbing, and everything like that, which can also lead to feelings of isolation. Lastly, the main thing I would like to bring to students starting university in September is a greater awareness of support services from day one. I want every student that comes to the University of Nottingham to feel they know where to go to seek help and feel that their voice will be valued when they do so.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to our second and last pre-prepared question. Religion and faith groups do not have any representation system within the Students' Union. What do you think is the SU's responsibility when it comes to representing and supporting religious students on campus? And we'll start with there.
So religious and faith groups are at the centre of my manifesto and to a certain degree. I think that they do need greater representation in the student union. So the first thing I would do would be to improve our faith spaces. I've become aware that a lot of Muslim students are experiencing issues with having to miss lectures or rush in between seminars and lectures because of their prayer time clashing. And therefore, if we put high quality prayer spaces nearer lecture halls and nearer study spaces, this would no longer be such a big issue. I also want to encourage religious celebration throughout the year and greater understanding of religious events, not just the Christian holidays. Lastly, I think that we have a responsibility to adapt zero tolerance to discrimination, and there's high rates of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism on this campus, and that's something that I would work hard to eliminate.
Read the question for yourself.
As always, the first thing I would like to do is listen to students, because that is, I don't want to start implementing something that would ultimately end up like hurting them and not listening to their needs. So one, it's disappointing that we don't have a part-time officer that represents religious students. So that is something I would work towards, but also just, once again, just listening and finding out where my efforts are best put. Also improving the ways in which we can report Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and things that are not like oppression that is not focused on an Anglo-Christian, basically just understanding that there should be a way for students of marginalized religions to express their disappointment with how things are currently being handled.
Thank you. We will now move on for two questions from the crowd. Just a reminder that all questions that are asked need to be answered by both candidates, so you can't ask a targeted question to one candidate. Do we have any questions from the crowd at all? Yes, we'll take the question in the back.
Joe Paternoster, he, him. So our Liberation Officer this year, Aoife, introduced the Liberation Hub. It's a really awesome space, and I was just wondering if you guys had any plans to develop a Liberation Hub or any things you're doing it, sort of if you get into the role this year. So yeah, just interested.
So the question is how would you use/utilise the Liberation Hub if you were elected? We'll start with yourself.
I think the Liberation Hub is a really amazing place. Like, if I'm not in lectures or anywhere, like, that is where I am. So I think, one, just increasing the library that is already there so students can borrow more books. The resources that are there, like the bells, I don't know what they're called, but the sexual assault alarms, there's just like funding putting funding towards increasing the resources that are already available, hosting events where people, marginalized students feel more comfortable, like discussions, forums, as I previously said, with the complaint system that religious students need, that can be a place where they feel comfortable to fill them out, or just increasing the funding that goes there, and also maybe having a similar one on the SB campus, because I noticed that there wasn't one there. So.
And the same question for yourself.
I would definitely be excited to continue and expand the Liberation Hub. I think it is a great way of engaging with students and advocating for them for their voices to be empowered. I think I would use it to sort of extend out to societies and be made for a safe social space. So as I was speaking about Welcome Week and Freshers and having events which aren't centered around drinking, I think that is where the hub could be used. So for example, for an LGBTQ plus event at the university. I'd also like to use it to organize campaigns and protests and that sort of thing. So earlier on in this year, we did Reclaim the Night, and we did banner making session, and everyone actually wasn't here, funnily enough, but we could use that space, and it would be a space that everyone knows exactly where it is, how to get there, and if they want to have their voices heard, that's where they go.
Thank you. We do have time to take one more question from the crowd, if there are any. So do we have any questions for any of our Liberation Officer candidates? I see no hands. So just before we go, I will read out all the candidates for our election. So we have Noah Holt, Ayomide Alawakimini Omoni. Sorry, could you say your name for me?
Ayomide Oluwabukumi Omoni.
Thank you very much. And of course, reopen nominations. We will now be moving on, have a short kind of minute break, but we'll be moving on to the postgraduate officer candidates. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, we will now come back to the postgraduate officer candidates. Thank you very much. So, the postgraduate officer is central to the development of the postgraduate experience at the University of Nottingham. From academic experience to student groups, from research to postgraduate support, you will work closely with every officer to give every postgraduate a great university experience. You'll be working on social initiatives to support the development of a social community and representing students at the university around academic issues, working closely with the education officer. We will now ask the candidates to introduce themselves and give their 60-second speeches. The timer will start after they say their names and pronouns. So we'll start here.
Is this on? Yeah, cool. Hello everyone, my name's River, my pronouns are they, them. Low 60 seconds is why you should vote for me. So I'm currently the Students' Union Education Officer for this year, and I've also been involved in rent strike organising over 1,200 students in rent strikes, Demilitarised UN organiser and Diverse Borders organiser. Through campaigning in the Students' Union over the last year as the Education Officer, it's become clear that the Students' Union does not effectively represent postgraduate needs. This underrepresentation has led me to wanting to provide a concerted effort towards campaigning for better representation, empowerment, well-being and conditions across the university for postgrad students. My three main goals are to end casualisation for postgrads who are on teaching contracts, increase stipends and provide better representation. We need collective power led by student influence to force universities to listen to us. For too long, they have got away with having no consequences for treating us badly, and I want to help change the face of the Students' Union to be one that actively supports change.
I will now move on to the next candidate.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Spring. My pronoun is she, her, and I'm running for postgraduate officer. My first manifesto is improving the postgraduate students get involved in the university as soon as possible, because there is only 1 year for students to study in this university. And my second manifesto is make sure every student's voice can be heard by increasing the opportunity, communication between the student union with postgraduates, and provide them with regular update. And I'm willing to achieve this within my power. Vote me makes it different and better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next candidate.
Hello everyone, my name is Raran. I'm currently a master's student in Human Resources Management, pronounced she, her. I don't want to be overly ambitious. I just want to make a real contribution and help the postgraduate community to get more out of it. We cannot make the 1 master year longer, but we can try to make it wider. Any problem you encounter can be effectively solved, and any confusion will be guided. I will be committed to enriching the university experience, helping to develop more opportunities, explore more possibilities, and release a better version of yourself. Let's make some real change. Please give me a chance. I will give you a surprise.
And we'll now move on to our next candidate.
Hello everyone. For all the people who know me, my name is Yukta Swami, and for the people who don't know me, my name is Yukta Swami. So currently I'm running for the position of postgrad officer. My pronouns are she or her. As a fellow postgrad student and as a postgrad international student, as well as a social committee member and a course representative, I completely understand the challenges we face, and I'm here to advocate for our needs and make sure our voices are heard. My manifesto includes initiatives such as regular meetups, events that the postgrad students are lacking, and ensuring access to student union spaces on all campuses, providing diverse food options at an affordable prices, creating a vibrant social space for postgraduate and international students. I'm passionate about representing the postgrad community and advocating for our needs. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope to have your vote.
The final candidate is unable to be here today, but has sent their answers to these questions and a 60-second speech. So This is Binta Anjon. I am Binta Anjon, and I am running for the position of the full-time officer, postgraduate officer. As a second-year student in the Computer Science Master's Programme, I have served as a course representative and a subject ambassador for the university. Through these roles, I have gained valuable experience and insights into the needs of postgraduate students, especially international students like myself. If elected, I will continue to work tirelessly to improve the postgraduate student experience at our university. I have spoken to numerous students across campus, listened to their feedback, and understood the changes they wish to see in our community. I believe that with my experience and passion, I can bring about the necessary changes that will make a real difference in our lives as postgraduate students. I humbly request your support and your vote in the upcoming election. We'll now move on to the pre-prepared questions. So postgraduate tour students find it hard to create communities due to them only being here for a year. What do you think could be done better to support postgraduate tour students in community building? And we'll start with Binta Anjon. To better support postgraduate taught students at the University of Nottingham in community building, the university could offer more social events, create peer mentorship programs, establish online forums, and facilitate collaborations between students in different programs. Many of the events currently being organised are not PG focused. I would try and organise events like the ones held during the Welcome Week to create a sense of familiarity and community. By doing so, postgraduate taught students can connect with others who share similar academic interests and build lasting relationships despite their short time at the university. I will now move on to our next candidate.
Hi, my name is Yukta. I pronounce she or her. I believe community building is a major challenge for postgrad, and this is something that cannot be done in 1 or 2 days. This will firstly require a collective effort from the university, from the student union, the course representative, as well as the support from the student to create a sense of community. However, few quick fixes for these are regular activities, engaging the postgrad with incentives, or just having a fun gathering. Secondly, the role of course reps can be enhanced with a proper toolkit to organize and plan events for their courses specifically every sem. Finally, a broader section of postgrads don't participate in societies, which needs to be relooked at, where I propose a meeting with the society heads to discuss and create opportunities for the postgrads to contribute more. Thank you.
We'll move on to the next candidate.
Well, the suggestion will be divided to several parts. Firstly, utilize the student society, conduct more social events, like use welcome events, social events as a starting point. Arrange it during the introduction week of new students, and then carry out regular society activities to increase students' participation. Similar to a pyramid, and as students move up the pyramid, they are more engaged, and it is easier for them to build the community. Secondly, encourage peer supports. Some students who choose to continue to complete the master's degree at UN or doctor, they may more familiar with the school environment. The uni can arrange activities such as campus tour in a way that requires them to be volunteers. It will be easier for the freshmen to integrate into local community under the leadership of the senior students. It can also be reflected in the school's accommodation arrangements, such as the willingness survey before moving to the accommodation, arrange different areas according to the community preference. And lastly, as a course management, school can arrange courses that require taught by teams in the first few weeks of the semester to promote the same major student make connections. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to the next candidate.
Yes, postgraduate is a short time, but I think help them to create a community is still very important, because there are a lot of things need to explore in our university. I think there are several suggestions. The first one is email them a newsletter every week, and can help them to know what kind of activity will happen during the week, and encourage them to get involved in many activities. And I think the second one is that we can ask help for the student alumni who already studied in a university a few years ago. So we can ask them as a mentor to help the current students to encourage them to join the activities.
And we'll move on to our next candidate.
Yeah, so I think one really important thing that the university should be doing, which it currently isn't, is alumni fees. We have a really good community in Nottingham of people who want to stay in Nottingham and already have those connections and can bring people in on master's courses and other postgrad courses, and they already know the area, so they can connect with new students. But we need a discount for students to be able to actually like continue their study and stay in Nottingham to continue boosting these communities. I think as well through working with the activities officer and the sports officer and getting more funding for postgrad societies and events means that even though you're only here for a year, you still have the same opportunities and the same, like it's, sorry, I'm having a really bad mental health day. My brain's like dying. So basically, more funding for socials, so students can actually meet people like on their, not just from their courses, but also like in their interests as well. So they can also make friends from their course, but also have it like they're in a community which actually cares about them. And even with like cost of living and stuff like that and problems, students can come together over these issues, especially with like campaigning. If students feel there's a problem which the university is not tackling, they can come together with students who, also are sharing the same struggle and make a community around that as well. And I think holding spaces for liberation groups, so no matter what background postgrad students come from, they can find their space in the university and they can continue to make connections. So yeah, it's a lot about funding and it's a lot about creating the space where postgrad students feel welcome to be here. Sorry, my brain's bad today.
Okay. We'll now move on to the next pre-prepared question for postgraduate officer. Postgraduate research students find it hard to find funds to present their work on and off campus. What do you think the SU could do to help postgraduates present their research at university and internationally? I will pass to our first candidate.
Thank you. So I have a lot of stuff on this in my manifesto. One really cool thing that I want to do is launch a postgraduate cross-department interdisciplinary conference that focuses on rewarding and recognizing the work of postgrads. And this would kind of lead towards like funding towards exceptional research, and also pushing this research into the postgrad community so other students know what research is being done, and also pushing it to high echelons of university staff as well, so they know this work that's going on and they want to fund it because it's like world leading. Also lobby for conference grants so that postgrad students can afford travel and accommodation when they're going to present their research they've done, and increase bursaries as well, especially during cost of living means that students just have more money, so they're more likely to go and present their research in other places because they can actually afford to do that. And I think also making like a termly report on like the work that's been done and like having recognition and awards for students who have done really good research and worked really well. And done like world-leading research, and having this available to other postgrads and other students, so everyone understands like how good the research is here. But I think ultimately as well, like hopefully through recognizing the research that's happening, the university will be more likely to put specific funding into specialized research positions, so that it kind of like makes a foothold for itself and actually has like a culture of like, this is the best research university, and actually wants to provide that. Because a lot of the time it feels like the research that's going on here is really, really impressive, but the university doesn't reward it in that way. So it's about giving publicity to that research and making the students who are doing that research feel like welcomed and feel rewarded that they've actually done good work and the university cares about them. Yeah, thank you.
We'll move on to the next candidate.
I think there are several solutions. The first one is a student union can provide opportunity between the research postgraduate with the company. Which company need technology development, and I think company can support a research postgraduate, and it can also help the company to get profit from it. And the sixth solution, I think, is student union can negotiate with a university to provide some financial aid or scholarship for the research postgraduate. For example, by providing some teaching or a research assistant to help research postgraduate can get well paid from teaching, for example, the undergraduate students, and then it can also help them to do some research. Yeah, thank you.
And our next candidate?
Honestly, I don't have any new idea of this question so far, so I'll move to.
And we'll go to move on next candidate.
Hi, my name is Yukta. My pronoun is she or her. Well, definitely, I have a few ideas for this. Firstly, establishing a postgrad research presentation fund. So here, basically, the student union could establish a dedicated fund to help postgrad research students to cover the costs associated with presenting their work, academic conferences, and other events. The fund could be administered by the committees of postgrad students and staff who would assess the application for funding and allocate awards based on criteria such as like academic merits and financial needs. Facilitating international collaboration. So the student union basically can help postgrad research students connect with the colleagues and institutions abroad by creating international partnerships, exchange programs, and research collaborations. This could be done by organizing network events and providing resources to help postgrad students identify potential collaborators. And lastly, I believe promoting visibility of postgrad research. So the SU can work to increase the visibility of postgrad research on campus and beyond by collaborating with academic departments and university communication office to publicize research findings and promote research events. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the final answer that was sent through to us by Benintha and John. The Students' Union can establish a dedicated fund for postgraduate students to cover the costs of attending conferences and presenting their research. The SU could also help promote these funding opportunities through various methods, including social media, newsletters, and other communication channels, to ensure that postgraduate students are aware of these resources. Apart from funding, the SU can work with academic departments to create more opportunities for postgraduate research, such as to organize conference events at the university that can help students practice and present their work. We will now move on to questions from the crowd, if there are any. I see that question. I see that attendee there. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Please, go ahead. Yes.
How would you help postgrad students who are employed by the university who are on casualised contracts and like insecure contracts?
Thank you. So how will you help postgraduate students who are employed, so postgraduates who teach, when it comes to their contracts and their work? So I will start with this candidate. Please start whenever you want to start speaking.
Well, I believe for international students, we have 2 years post-study work visa. So I believe there is no such contract as such. Like, we have the opportunity to work in a company where they are providing sponsorship, or if you want to sponsor yourself. And when it comes to certain contracts, we can definitely, me coming from a business school, we have certain opportunities where we can collaborate with companies which offer you work without any contracts as such. So it'll be better for everyone to approach the career forum. So I think we can improvise on that more.
Thank you. Move on to the next candidate.
I think the school can try to get more cooperation opportunity with more companies to like offer the postgraduate student a conditional offer and like get them more like career opportunities in the future. I think I kind of answered your question.
Move on to our next candidate.
Yes, I think a university can provide some career support for the students. For example, support them CV and interview and help them remember the coming later, and it's easy for them to apply for the job. And also, there's opportunity only for the. I know there's a job opportunity only for the postgraduate on our university website. So postgraduates can apply for those kind of job to reach their work experience, and this can help them to apply for the job in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Move to our next candidate.
So students who teach should be, who are employed by the university, should be employed on secure contracts. The university has no space to treat any employer without a fair contract. So I'd communicate with these students and also the Nottingham Anti-Casualisation Group to make sure that students who want to be employed on full-time contracts can be employed on that, not full-time contracts, but basically contracts that secures their working rights, and it secures that they can't be thrown around on a rotating system without like consultation by the university, and also making sure as well that like students who want to link up with other staff who have been treated the same way on insecure contracts have links so they can understand how to fight the university on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just to say that there are multiple candidates within the selection, some that have who haven't been able to attend today. So I'll read out all their names. So we have Aditya Samnis, Bintha John, Min Zhong, Ran, Ritha Butterworth, Ziyu Sung, Yukta Swami Shivana Kumara, and reopen nominations, also known as RON. We will now be swiftly moving to the sports officer election. We'll take a 60 seconds transfer break, and then we'll move on because we are currently just a little bit running late. So thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Due to the interest in time, I'm going to ask for everyone to settle down now. If you do want to take any conversations, you can take them outside. But we're going to be starting now. And we're going to be moving on to our sports officer candidates. So, the sports officer is key in the development and student voice within the University of Nottingham Sport. You'd provide key connection between UON Sport and the Students' Union, making sure that student feedback and voice is part of all the work and decisions of UON Sport. You'd also be a key contact for sports clubs and IMS Sport to promote and celebrate their work, as well as working closely with your counterpart at Nottingham Trent Students' Union to organise the annual Varsity Series. I'll ask the candidates to say their names and pronouns, and then they will have 60 seconds to speak about why they want to vote for you. So please, go ahead.
Brilliant. Hello. Thank you everyone for coming, for starters. My name's Sean. I'm running for sports officer for the next year, and my pronouns are he, him. So having been sports officer for the last 8 months, I've experienced quite a lot of exciting opportunities which being an officer brings along, but I don't feel like the change that I want to make is finished yet. I mentioned yesterday at Sutton Bonington that It takes a while for you to embed yourself into a role as an officer, and that's why I think that running for a second year will give me the real opportunity to work with clubs, work with presidents, work with the sport department and the SU to really embed change. One thing that I've done, which I'm really proud of, is the Let's Talk series. So this has been a series of open and honest conversations about different EDI issues which are currently happening, not only within sport, but across wider society as well, and giving people voices. I've also successfully worked with the Movember campaign throughout the back end of last year, which raised over £84,000 across the university. And generally, I've tried to really improve the visibility of the SU and the sports officer to sports teams to feel like their voice can be heard.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the first of 2 pre-prepared questions. What could be done to encourage more underrepresented groups to get involved in sporting activities?
Yeah, thank you. So like I briefly just said there, we started a series of Let's Talk. So we started with Let's Talk Men's Mental Health, which then moved on to Let's Talk Parasport. And just at the back end of February, we had the Let's Talk LGBTQ+ in sport. What these were really open and honest conversations and gave a voice to students from these groups to talk about experiences that they've had with sport, whether this is outside of the university or inside of the university. At times, they were quite damning of certain sports clubs, but I think that's something that I can really bring to the role, is being brave, being bold, and not being scared to say, right, things need to change. The feedback we've had from that has been brilliant. We've also got a really exciting opportunity within the sport department. Now, I'm not supposed to say that the university did something good, because this is the SU, but actually the university did something really great, which was commit to quite a lot of money through the Access and Participation Plan Fund to bring in some roles within the sport department, which are for black student sport engagement, disabled student sport engagement, and students from low socioeconomic background sport engagement. And we've recently recruited for these, so I've been part of the panels that has recruited for these, and these are going to specifically target those groups across kind of the EDI spectrum within sport to bring students to sport, bring sport to students, and not feel like that there's a clique within sport or you have to be a certain type of person to get involved. So it's just a really exciting time. And being someone who's been part of that process from the last 8 months, I feel like I'm ready to kind of work with those new employees. Literally started yesterday, one of them. So yeah, it's really exciting, and yeah, I think that's it, to be honest.
Thank you. Our second and final pre-prepared question for the sports officer candidates. Due to the nature of sports, there is going to be a high cost involved for students to engage. What do you think could be done with this to make it more accessible, especially due to cost of living?
Yeah, thanks. So this question actually reminded me of an instance during January when we did the Refreshers Fair. I was promoting some varsity stuff, and there was a student with a hockey stick in their bag. I said, "Oh, you're a hockey player. Which team are you in?" And they responded, "Oh no, I play down at Beeston Hockey Club." I said, "Oh, why not? Why not at university?" And their response was, "Well, because at the start of the year, I would have had to pay 250 quid, and then I would have had to pay 70 quid to be part of the hockey club, and then I would have had to pay for all the socials and all the kit, and I just don't have that money." And I kind of sat there and thought, yeah, fair enough. That's really expensive and a lot of money, especially if you're not from a privileged background where you're able to afford that. We had some great feedback from the Sports Council that was held at the back end of last year, where we had a really frank, open discussion with Dan Tilley, the Director of Sport, about introducing direct debits. Lots of students feel like paying for sport at the start of the year, or a sport membership at the start of the year, ties them in, and they have to then be part of something that maybe, if they're new to sport, suddenly 250 quid is quite a lot of money if you're not sure, and what if you don't get into a team? It's quite a daunting thing to think about. The direct debit conversations have started. I mentioned in my manifesto that I want this to be a serious consideration. The reason for that is because the conversations that have been had currently is, yeah, direct debit, great idea, let's have a think about it. We have a think about it, we have a chat, and we go, ooh, that's quite tricky actually, isn't it? Okay, never mind. And I don't really think that's fair. That doesn't represent what students want. What students need is for the university to say, yeah, we get that that's tough, and that's going to be hard for us to foot the cost, but this is really important to students, so we're going to commit to it. That's why I want a serious consideration around it. One great thing that the University of East Anglia did recently was kind of a cost analysis across all sports. So like I mentioned about joining a sport club might be your £250 and then your £70. but all your kit and all your socials, you have to buy a bottle of rum every 2 weeks or whatever. I don't know. I'm not very social, to be honest. What I'm getting at is that starting those conversations with clubs and saying, right, how much does it actually cost to be part of your club, and what are you expected to, pay to be part of this transport, everything like that. It makes clubs sit and look at themselves and think, actually, yeah, do you know what? That is quite a lot of money, and that's not really fair for students to have to put on top of the cost of living crisis where everything is booming in price anyway. So it's like I said earlier, it's about being bold, being brave, and not being afraid to challenge clubs, for clubs to challenge me, and then me to go back to the scary people in offices hidden away in buildings and go, what you're doing is not good enough at the moment.
Thank you. Now we will take questions from the crowd, but just a reminder, even though we do have one candidate on stage, please make sure that questions are not targeted and can be answered by anyone. Are there any questions from the floor? I see that participant there.
Hello, Sean. Joe Paternoster, he, him. So one of the coolest things I did with sport this year was we went and planted some trees as like a sustainability initiative. Did that with Sean, with Lily, with Jess here as well. I'm just wondering what other sustainability ideas and initiatives you might have for the sort of year ahead. Anything on the horizon? I'm just curious.
So do you have any sustainability initiatives when it comes to sport for this year?
Thank you, Joe. Great question, and it was brilliant you being there, coming along despite your many broken shoulders and arms at the time. Good effort. Yeah, sustainability is kind of a key thing within sport at the moment. In terms of specific initiatives for the next year, that's really hard to pinpoint. We've done some great tree planting. I would like to do that again. I'd like to make that bigger. I always say we've only planted 900. That's a lot of trees, but think about the size of the campus, all the facility we've got, we can plant so many more. It's not just about planting trees, though. It's about changing people's perspectives, changing people's thoughts about what it means to be sustainable. So whether that's from the cafes that you get in David Ross or across campus that have to do with sport facilities, are they using sustainable products? Are they using reusable, recyclable materials? One thing that I did earlier this year, which I'm quite proud of, was the chair of books, which is British University College Sport, sat in a meeting that I was in and said, we're challenging every company that works with us to be really sustainable. And I stuck my hand up and said, yeah, but Vince, what are you doing to be sustainable for universities and to help us? And he ummed and ahed a bit, and he didn't really provide much of an answer. And then he followed up and said, Sean, actually, I want you to sit with me and chair a sustainability group for all higher education sport. So, yes, we can do a lot here at the University of Nottingham, but it's about changing perspectives across the entire higher education sector. Unfortunately, we have a situation where clubs go and play in Aberdeen and down in Exeter that requires bus journeys and aeroplanes, and there's no easy way to just stick them in an electric car and hope for the best. That's not really how it works. What it is getting guidance and challenging the people who have the budgets, who have the money to really influence change across all university sport.
Thank you. And just a reminder that there are two candidates in the election. This is Sean Nolan and reopen nominations, Ron. We are going to take a little bit of a break before we move on. So we'll be starting back at 20 past, just so that we can give everyone a break to move on to then Union Development Officer, which will be coming next. So a little bit of a break before we move on. Thank you very much. It's off, don't worry. I think my one's always on. It's part of my rider that I have mine was always on. Anyway, so questions are here. I will also have the 60-second time for you, so if you want to use that, I will start it off and you can start the thing. The microphones. If it's red, you're live. If it's not red, you're not live. Press the button, and then you're live. And press the button when you're live. Amazing, thank you. You all okay? All good? You go this way, that way, this way. Okay. Sorry. Before we start, I want to say sorry for any background noise that we had during the postgraduate officer elections. My dad was calling me multiple times, asking how I was doing. So, and last time I hosted an event like this, my dad called me. I actually just put them on microphone, but for this time, it's not good. Anyway, a proper break cut for NSTV. So. Welcome back to the Union Development Officer candidates. The Union Development Officer provides a key connection between the Students' Union and the senior levels of the university. They'll work closely with the Vice-Chancellor and the Pro-Vice-Chancellors on key decisions within the university, chair the Students' Union Trustee Board, which makes key financial and organisational decisions on the direction and spending of the Students' Union, and works with the SU Social Enterprise team to keep our outlets operating with students at the heart. Candidates will introduce their name and then their pronouns, and then they'll have their 60 seconds opening speeches. And I'll start over here.
1, 2, yes. Good evening, my name's Harry. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a student in the School of Politics and International Relations. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I'm standing for your, Union Development Officer because the current state of affairs in our university is not good enough. Our Students' Union and our uni are failing to represent the wants and needs of the students. The current SU officers are not as visible as they could be, and communication from both the university management and the Students' Union in general is not good enough for the fees that we're paying. I'm standing for Union Development Officer because the union needs strong leadership and a voice, and I feel like that we're in danger of not being able to have our views heard by union management on a more permanent basis. I'm standing to do better, and I'm standing to make a positive change for the whole of the student community. Thank you.
And we'll now move on to our next candidate.
Hi, I'm Jess. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm really grateful for all the amazing opportunities I've had with the Student Union over my time here, and I've really come to love it. But through these opportunities, I've also come to know where the gaps are, where improvements need to happen, and I think as Union Development Officer, I know how to do this. Students need a better system to get their frustrations across the university. I want to listen and I want to help. We all have such unique experiences here, and the university really needs to recognise that. I am tired of us being put in boxes. By voting for me, you can help make sure that the university stops treating us like consumers of a product and starts celebrating our individuality. I want to enrich the student experience so you can make the most out of your time here. I will channel resources into making sure you have amazing personal development opportunities beyond your studies. Ultimately, I'm here to empower you. Don't settle for less.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the first of the two pre-prepared questions for these candidates. What do you think the Students' Union could do to improve opportunities for student staff roles, especially due to the cost of living crisis? And I'll start with this candidate.
Hi, Jess again. As a brand ambassador, I'm a member of student staff myself at the SU, and the biggest obstacle that I've faced during my time here is having access to consistent work opportunities. The money I earn from working as a brand ambassador is what I depend on a lot for food and transport, and it's a really consistent struggle and frustration when I know that this isn't consistent. I know so many people who are in the same boat. For student staff that are already part of the union, more work opportunities need to be created. It's important that as an employer, the SU is realistic about the amount of work we'll be asked to do so that the paychecks at the end of the month don't come as a surprise. At a practical level, I think a certain thing that can be taken to support student staff during the cost of living crisis is offering free meals after long shifts. Whether it be a meal from Mooch or food vouchers for those working in outlets such as Spa and Portland Clothing, This little bit of support from the Students' Union can really go a long way for individuals. Right now, Mooch staff receive 50% off food when they work a shift over 6 hours. But with the way that food prices have soared, they're still paying more than what they would have for the same meal a couple of years ago. If this isn't feasible from a business perspective, then I will lobby for extra support from the university to support the welfare and well-being of student staff here at the union, given the Students' Union is a charity. Another way to support students in the cost of living crisis is to create more work opportunities within the Students' Union. By employing more people at food outlets, it will create safer working environments and then support the well-being of all staff. The union could also offer one-off working opportunities for people to earn extra cash. These roles could be created to encourage people to become advocates and engage with the Students' Union, and encourage other students to engage with events such as varsity or elections, spreading the messages and bringing engagement back up. Engagement's not recovered properly post-COVID. With engagement of the SU going up, more money will be made, which can then justify these new roles being created. A final general point that can really support students during the cost of living crisis is that we need to raise awareness for the hardship fund. We need to raise awareness for the hardship fund. It is there to help people, and people don't know enough about it yet, so that needs to change. Thank you.
And same question for this candidate.
I'm going to turn this question on its head a bit. I think the sentiment suggested by it, this idea that students have got to get paid work in order to top up their maintenance loans, in order to survive, I think that idea is preposterous, and I just don't like it at all. We don't come to university to work. If we wanted to make money instead, then we'd have gone into the world of work straight out of school. There are lots of reasons why someone might choose Nottingham, but I just think that you don't choose Nottingham on UCAS based on the amount of part-time work opportunities. I'm not against work. I personally do a lot of work. I do part-time work. I do a voluntary work placement with Nottingham citizens. But that in and of itself affects study, it affects the societies you can get involved with, and it affects the experiences that you come here to have. I don't think that the Union Development Officer's role is just to create as many student staff roles as possible. I think the Union Development's role should be to create as many opportunities to get involved with the Students' Union as possible. The best student unions are the ones that have opportunities for extracurriculars, for sport, for performing arts, for whatever the hobby is that you want to do, however unique it might be. Giving students new experiences is the main purpose of a students' union. So we need to maintain the current level of student staff, ideally jobs that pay a proper living wage as opposed to the minimum wage. But I think when addressing the cost of living, we've got to look towards the university. I think that we need to make sure that the university makes up for the increased burden on students caused by the cost of living crisis by increasing the core bursary payment and extending bursaries to more students. And what this does, it puts money back in the pockets of students to ensure that part-time work is not a mandatory thing that you have to do, but an optional one. Thank you.
We'll now move to the second and final pre-prepared question. The Students' Union has had the most amount of referenda in one academic year this year, with 6. Do you think referenda is the best way for students to have an impact on SU decisions? And why do you think this? And we'll start with this candidate here.
The referendums that have been taking place and are taking place, namely because of the rules and the constitution of the Students' Union, are, for want of a better insult, really, really silly. Jump back to the EU referendum, and referendums, they're quite literally the worst way to decide anything ever. They're divisive. They pretend that complex choices are simple binaries, heads or tails, black or red, odds or evens. And we know that there are more nuanced and sophisticated ways out there to make political change. For example, electing officers, what we're doing right now, based on their manifestos and what they can give back to the student community. I think that many of the referendums taking place, they don't actually have a directive for student union officers. I think a single statement produced by your students' union, what does it mean as off the back of a referendum result? The officers that might get elected might have contradictory views to the outcomes of these referendum results. So the best way for students to have an impact on SU decisions is through, 1, electing officers that align mostly with what their views are, and 2, electing officers that are going to work hard in the interest of students, and not electing officers that are just happy to pick up a wage and are not actually going to do anything. And I can assure everyone here that I'm not a commentator, I'm not a reactionary, I'm a doer. Thanks.
And second candidate.
I think it's really great that through recent referenda we've been able to see so much solidarity with from the student body. For example, when we voted with a huge majority to support the UCU strike action. It's great that we've been able to offer this opportunity for students to actually have a say and influence major university decisions, SU decisions, sorry. It shows that engagement with the SU is growing, but it's still not where it needs to be. It's great that we hit quorum, but in order to really effectively represent the student body, more needs to be done. Therefore, right now, referenda is not working well enough to represent student opinion and give students power in major SU decisions. But there is something we can do. The issue isn't with referenda itself, but with the overall engagement with the SU. I spoke to lots of my friends on my course on Jubilee campus, and most of them aren't very involved with the SU at all, and no one knew that the referendum was happening. No one knew that everyone knew about the strikes, but they didn't know there was a referendum within the SU on the strikes. This is a really key issue, and it shows that the referendums have not accurately represented the student body in its entirety. Therefore, the SU needs to do more to go to students rather than just assuming that students know what's going on. In order to fix this, we can collaborate with schools and integrate SU activity into the day-to-day activities of courses, making sure that we are there in person, ready to speak to people, let them know what's going on, all through the year rather than just in Welcome Week. We need to go to different campuses and schools of study, different libraries and different halls to properly engage rather than just hoping people see the signs in the Portland building and check the Instagram. Once we do that, referenda will be an effective way to represent the student body and allow students to have a strong opinion in major SU decisions. Thank you.
That is the last of the pre-prepared questions. I will now offer if any people want to take questions from the crowd. As a reminder, questions need to be asked to both candidates, so need to be general enough. I see this person at the front.
Thank you. Sean, pronouns he, him. One of the key parts of the role of Union Development Officer is to develop the relationship between the SU and the university, including kind of the Vice-Chancellor, the Registrar, Deputy Registrar, all those people. How will you go about developing that relationship for kind of a better collaborative approach going forwards?
So how would you better develop the relationship between the university and the Students' Union as the Union Development Officer? And we'll start with this candidate here.
Jess again. I think one of the most important parts of developing that relationship is being so open and honest and transparent about what's wrong. There are so many things that the student body is frustrated with, and instead of dancing around the topics trying to be polite, I think it's really important to create a relationship of transparency, making sure that we are really clear and specific about what's wrong, but also collaborative in making sure that we can come to proper conclusions that make sense for the university, the Students' Union and the overall student body. Part of my manifesto is to put students at the centre of all major university decisions, to make sure that it's student experience that is enriched rather than just open days at the beginning of the term. We need more study spaces, we need more chance to actually engage properly within the student experience rather than just have a pretty campus. Obviously it's a lovely addition, but it's not the main reason we're here. We're here to study, and so to make sure that the university puts students first, it's really important that I have that clear, transparent cooperation in every meeting that we have.
Thank you, and same for this candidate.
The problem is, our university doesn't care about us. The problem is that the university cares about prospective students. It cares about the new buildings that they're building and being able to advertise that to prospective students and go, wow, look at this, as opposed to the current students who they've taken our fees and now they've thrown us off the hook and into the keep net. I think the way to make university listen is actually hit them where it hurts, where the pockets hurt. So things like rent strikes, things like organising to deter people from coming to university, because that is the only way that people in power are actually going to listen to the current students at all.
Thank you. I will see if there are any other questions from the crowd. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, candidates. And we'll move on to welfare and well-being. So we have 6 seconds and then we'll move on. But thank you.
Thank you.
And we are back with your final full-time officer election, the Welfare and Wellbeing Officer roles. So, the Welfare and Wellbeing Officer is key to make sure that the Students' Union and the university are focusing on supporting student welfare during their studies and time at the university. You'll work with key university staff to make sure services and activities focus on students and lead on key welfare and wellbeing campaigns with the Wellbeing Volunteer Network, including Exam Stress and Sexual Health and Guidance Week, SHAG Week. Okay, we'll now get the candidates to say their name and pronouns, and as soon as they start speaking, after that, there will be time for their 60-second openings. So please, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, my name's Elle Leach and my pronouns are she, her. I've been involved with the SU and student life, like too much is a problem. I was a welfare officer for halls, I've been GenSec for TravelSoc, I've been treasurer and welfare for FemSoc, I did Global Buddies, like so many things. And through that I've kind of learned how these roles, you can have so much impact in those small roles, and also it's taught me how welfare is such an all-encompassing thing. It affects your academics, it affects like your life outside of university, and it's the most important thing really. Also, I think I've got some like policies and ideas that would have like real change, but also equally importantly are achievable, which I'll say some now, but I don't think I'll get through all of them. First of all, a food bank, an SU food bank to alleviate food insecurity, which has been worsened by the cost of living crisis. And secondly, a library of things, which similarly for helping with the cost of living crisis, where you can borrow like a Hoover, like cleaning supplies if you need to.
Thank you very much, candidate. We'll now move on to the next candidate.
Hello. Hello, so my name is Ben Meller, my pronouns are he, him, and I am a third-year politics student, and I'm a student who has experienced a wide range of different experiences. In my first year I was a remote student, then I commuted, and now I live in Nottingham this year, and I'm running to be Welfare and Wellbeing Officer because quite simply, we don't have one this year, and with my sort of committee experiences within societies, I believe I'm well suited to sort of build a foundation from which, in future years someone can take even further. And I'm also running as well simply because it's something that I am very passionate about. I have had to access welfare services in the past before, and this is something I'm very open about. And also as well, simply, if elected, I've sort of got three main policy areas, and those are proactive campus engagement and welfare, so doing things like hall residency sessions, speaking to welfare society officers, also an emphasis on physical well-being, so cheaper David Roche memberships, by encouraging people to buy fruit, and finally partnering with charities just to expand the range of choice for students.
Thank you very much, candidate. We'll move on to the next candidate.
Hello, my name is Anushka, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm running to be the Welfare and Wellbeing Officer. Some of you might not know who or what that is because we had no welfare officer this year. Luckily for the SU though, I have been out and about spreading the welfare love on behalf of the missing welfare officer. If you have been to any welfare, mental health, artsy, craftsy, free pizza event, I'm sure you have seen me wandering around. With 2 years of welfare experience, I'm sure I can bring a lot to this role. Being a student is already difficult enough, and if you're not being well fed, then that's just sad. Sadly, I'm only allowed to speak for a minute, so I will have to ask you to read my manifesto on the website. And if you feel like I am a candidate nice enough, then vote for All Things Welfare.
Thank you, candidate. And we'll move to our next candidate.
Hi, my name is Hope. Should I say my last name? My name is Hope Halfrey, and my pronouns are they, them. I've been very engaged with many student groups, for example, the Nottingham Trans Collective, which was recently started by one of my friends, where I've helped organise community events. As a queer person, we are constantly practicing collective care. Even though we all have different experiences, we can come together as we try to bring joy and safety into each other's lives. And that's something I'd bring into the role of welfare officer. Obviously, students are experiencing difficult times, but if I can make your life a little bit less difficult, then I guess that's cool. I think I would be good for this role because I'm not afraid to stand up to out-of-touch executives in suits. Work to improve student welfare can often be band-aids rather than tackling root issues. I want to stand up to the members of management that claim university is doing everything it can for students throughout the cost of living crisis, despite sitting on millions of pounds in reserves and increasing rent in halls every single year without fail. Mindfulness can only do so much if your main worry is money, and I think the best way to fight for better is by bringing students together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidate. We'll now move on to the pre-prepared questions for the Welfare and Wellbeing Officer candidates. The cost of living crisis has significantly affected students. What do you think should be the key focus for the Students' Union to better support students through this crisis? And we'll start with this candidate.
Thank you. So, like I said just then, the main thing to tackle the cost of living crisis, which the university is not doing, is the rent reduction. Rent, especially in halls, which the university has like complete control over. I mean, actually, no, it works with the council as well, but has like a main role in. It keeps increasing the rent for students, even though the maintenance loan isn't increasing, and this is completely disregarding. It's like allowing the class divide to continue, as well as putting more stress on students' plates. Some of the rent is above the highest maintenance loan grant, which is just terrible. Food banks don't tackle like the root problems that students are facing, which students shouldn't be pushed to the point where they literally can't afford to eat. You should be able to like focus on your studies rather than worrying about money. So yeah, I think rent reduction is the main thing, but I think it's important to say that the university should be asking students this question. I believe that, I'd like to organise community events on campus, creating intentional spaces to encourage students to connect over the issues that we're all affected by, whilst also giving students the opportunity to speak on their own experiences. I think the only way to improve well-being on and off campus is by listening to people's experiences, and creating these spaces will allow students to feel safe, to talk about what matters most to them, and that will allow me to listen to them and also help them start their own campaigns. Obviously, I don't think it'll be easy, because if the university wanted to lower rent, then it would, but if we come together and feel safe in these spaces, then we can support each other with this campaigning and any other campaigns that people would like to start.
We'll move on to the next candidate.
Hello, Anushka again, pronouns they, them. As someone who has a lot of experience with working with student welfare and someone who is affected by the cost of living crisis, I still cannot imagine the amount of stress students might be under right now. One of my manifesto points aims to build inclusive social spaces across campuses. These spaces will not only have it'll not only be a place to relax, but it'll also have free resources like desktop computers, microwaves, kettles, books, stationery, etc. They might not seem like a lot, but in times like these, anything and everything will be helpful. These spaces will also have information about mental health facilities if the student is not only being affected physically, but they have mental stress as well. My quarterly welfare campaigns, where I would have an open and honest communication with students as regarding what they would like to see on campus, would also help me and help them into telling me that what they want on campus. And lastly, I will aim to collaborate with all the other SU officers and help plan out how we can use our yearly budget to use it efficiently and to come through during a crisis like this.
Thank you. Move on to the next candidate.
Hello, so my name is Ben Meller. My pronouns are he, him. And over the past year, student loans are now worth 7.2% less compared to last year. And this is because of inflation, because of the cost of living. And this has sort of come at the expense of a balanced student experience. And so one of the things that students are particularly cutting back on are fun activities, social activities, and in this regard, this is somewhere where the Students' Union is incredibly well placed to support, as it already has done, for example, with the Mooch Live Music Nights, providing students sort of a night of free live music and entertainment, as it has already done with events such as the Queer Ballroom, which is only £1 or £2 for entry and they got a free drink. So events like that are absolutely crucial because ensuring that students are able to enjoy life and not simply just live to the absolute bone is just essential for maintaining sort of a healthy state of well-being. And so I work to keep these sorts of events going. But sort of beyond that, the essentials, things like rent, energy, food, these are absolutely eating into sort of student finances. And this is causing a lot of sort of stress, and quite a fair bit of this is under the control of the university and the Students' Union. So for example, accommodation prices. Take somewhere like Broadgate Park, a standard ensuite room, comparing this year to next year, the price is increasing by £900. Why? There's no reason for it. And so that is somewhere where we can improve. And additionally as well, prices in the Portland building are increasing in SU outlets. And so working to sort of lock these prices or, perhaps get them subsidized, that is where we can sort of really alleviate stress from students. And sort of finally as well, the Free Independent Student Union's Advice Centre, that can provide advice to students for finance, provide advice on housing, and promoting that I think is a really good way for students to have a point of contact to go to get professional advice. Thank you.
And our next candidate.
Hiya, Elle, she, her pronouns. I think the main focus should be money in pockets at the end of the day. With increasing bursaries, especially for students that the university knows are from lower social economic backgrounds, because the cost of living crisis isn't affecting everyone equally. Also joining in with campaigns with like the NUS, who are campaigning to get maintenance loans increased, which although it's a loan, it's not ideal. In the short term, it would provide like some help for students. Also, as someone who has been affected by it, I have to work a part-time job and was at one time working 2 jobs and studying full-time. I think we asked another candidate about this earlier. Jobs aren't always the answer because then you might get more money to survive, but you're then time poor and it's affecting your degree.
Thank you. And we will now move on to the second pre-prepared question for candidates. Due to poor sexual health and relationships education at secondary school, students often are unequipped and have warped understandings of sexual health and relationships. What key issue would you focus on, and what are your first steps to solving this? We'll start with this candidate here.
Hi, Elle, she, her pronouns. I think there's quite a lot of issues around this, but I would say the main one is consent. I know last year Sexpression started a really good campaign to make mandatory consent training for students and staff. And I think that's something that needs to be continued because I don't think it got put into place. And I know that first year students got sent a text that was meant to like fulfill this brief, but I've heard, I've not actually seen it, but I've heard that it was confusing and didn't directly address like sexual consent and things of that nature. Also, sexual assault is on the rise in Nottingham, and a big number of those people reporting it is students, and yet Report and Support are not seeing those numbers with the university having it reported. So I think the Report and Support needs to be improved so people feel comfortable to get support from university, and that the support that is in place is often not fulfilled to completion, which to me says it's not working for people, they don't want to engage with it. Also, yeah, around information around consent and workshops and making that consent mandatory, because I think people that are the problem probably don't think they're the problem. And in student surveys, only 55% were confident around all issues around consent. And when alcohol is involved, only 30% of students said they were confident with navigating consent. So I think that's a really big issue.
The next candidate.
Hello, my name is Ben Meller. My pronouns are he, him. And the issue of sort of sexual health and relationships education is something that I'm already very passionate about. People who know me will know that I currently co-host a podcast called Earngasm, which is about sexual health and relationships. And it's a very difficult issue to tackle because simply hosting sort of lecture-style, lesson-style events, the problem with those is that they don't tend to get very well attended, and especially by those that, you know, particularly need that more information, that further education. And so, you know, what I'd like to do is pretty much just sort of as a key focus is we already have the SHAG week, the Sexual Health and Guidance week, and sort of what I'd want to do is I'd want to really sort of take that and really just sort of run with it. And so, for example, this year, it was really good. You know, they held events throughout Portland, and they were engaging. They spent a day down on SB as well with a stall. And what I'd want to do with that, this is the twist, sort of really make it all-encompassing across all of the campuses, you know, all week, really sort of go all in on it. You know, have sort of not just one stall, but stalls throughout different places across campus, you know, with leaflets, just to get speaking to people, you know, giving out free things to get them engaged, just having a conversation and educating them sort of as they have fun. And that, I think that is sort of a really good way to go about it. And also as well, just sort of another thing that I would also do with SHAG Week as well, just to really sort of wrap it all up, is, you know, I'd get societies on board. Sort of one of the points in my manifesto is working closely with society welfare officers through sort of a different range of things. And this can be one of the areas that we work together with. Sort of encouraging societies during SHAG Week, and indeed, you know, throughout sort of the year, to hold events that inform students and also just get them to have a bit of fun, because that is sort of the best way to educate them. Thank you.
The next candidate.
Hello, Anushka, pronouns they, them. I believe that sexual health is something that is still not talked about enough. But campaigns such as SHAG Week and A to Z Consent are things that are working towards improving the knowledge of students about sexual health. Even the community cabinets have condoms and pregnancy tests. And as the other candidate mentioned about the consent training, I am a part of a community which helps survivors of sexual abuse, and we have managed to push the university enough that consent training will be mandatory soon. I would like to build up upon these. I feel like this is a step in the right direction, but someone still needs to push forward with full force. I aim to bring another key aspect, which is STI tests. Recently, the university has started to provide free sexual health screenings, but I still feel like students might not be very comfortable with being that vulnerable. So awareness about STI tests should be promoted, which are like tests which are free from the NHS. Awareness might include giving students an opportunity to pick up the test from campus, or they can order it themselves. I believe that this would be a good starting point into bridging that gap which has been created by the lack of knowledge about sexual health in secondary school. Thank you.
And our next candidate.
I'm going to say consent again, but everyone said that. But I guess one thing I think with consent is like, some people said this as well, but like a lot of people who don't have a lot of knowledge about consent may not want to attend a panel or a discussion about consent. I do think that discussions about consent can be fun and consent can be made sexy, which like with that, like there shouldn't be, like that could be a fun thing that we could do, and like during Shag Week having like panels and like interactive discussions that aren't just like someone lecturing you, but like you can ask questions and build in people's experiences and invite in different speakers. I think that'd be good. But obviously a lot of people who may need to come to these things may not. And I guess one way to get around that is to do like look after your mate training, but in the way like you can like, I don't know, I guess prevent sexual assault or things from happening if you're on a night out and if you see something, and how to help people. And then another thing, when talking about report and support, a lot of people who have been affected by a sexual assault may not want to report it because like it might not make it better. So I guess one thing that we could do around that, well, it won't make it better mentally, but like one thing we could do around that is like having better support networks. And one thing that like was working with Club Safe Collective was like the idea of like building communities around people who've had like experiences with that, and supporting each other and making safe spaces where people can talk about it, or maybe not even talk about it, just do like arts and crafts. And we had one of those nights, and it was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. That is the end of the pre-prepared questions. Due to the interest of time, we are only going to take one question from the crowd. So remember, your question has to be targeted to every candidate. We have a new person at the front, so please, this person at the front here.
Hello, Dan Hack, he, him. So in terms of the current, you could say, crisis with mental health, with a lot of students, and especially with situations such as the cost of living crisis, student mental health right now is quite bad as a whole, and sometimes it can feel quite overwhelming or confusing where to turn to find guidance or support. So what would you do to work on improving outreach and awareness of wellbeing resources, especially due to the fact that, say, the counselling service is now just referral only and there's a very long waiting list? So what would you do to help on improving wellbeing resources that students can access more easily?
So what would you do to improve wellbeing resources for students, and how you would promote it and so they can access them? Is that what you said? Yes, of course. How would you, when it comes to mental health and wellbeing, how would you develop wellbeing resources, and how would you promote those within the student body? Okay. Take your time. It's fine.
Sorry, I'm really not ready for questions out of my brain. I guess like in the sense of like people not knowing where to turn to, like I mentioned community events earlier, and I guess having places where students can go and like meet the wellbeing officer and like have chats with other people who might be experiencing something similar to you. But obviously like I'm not going to do group therapy because that's not what my role is, but like the kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is what I have access to, this is how I did it, and like sharing those kind of things. Recently a disability network or a society has been set up, and it helps people access support plans who may not know how to do that, or like might not know all the things that they can access through that, and I think that's really helpful. So something along the lines of that, maybe. Thanks.
Move on to our next candidate.
Hello, Anushka again, still me. As I've mentioned before, I have worked in the welfare sector for the last 2 years, and especially in the last year when I was the welfare coordinator in Welcome Week. There, I was working with my colleague, and we felt like new students are very lost when they come to university, and they can face a lot of mental health issues. And again, as you said, they might feel lost as to where to turn to. So for that, we created a welfare card, which is a very small handy card, and it has like QR codes. So we're not bombarding them with information, but we're also giving them enough so they can reach out to people. I recently, when I work with the Student Voice now in the well-being sector again, I felt as if that initiative shouldn't be focused to welcome. So I worked with my new colleagues and we made welfare cards which can be available throughout the year, which is also one of my manifesto aims, that I will plan to spread the welfare love across the year and not just in welcome. Yeah.
Move on to our next candidate.
May you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. So what would you do to improve wellbeing resources and the promotion of them?
So the promotion of existing welfare services is something that I sort of detail in depth in my manifesto. It's one of my sort of key policy areas, mainly because being proactive is absolutely essential in a role like this. I believe my manifesto contains sort of the little line saying there's no guarantee that anyone who is struggling or suffering will go out of their way to access services. You need to be proactive. You need to go to the student. And one of the ways that this can be done is in my manifesto, I sort of have a policy referred to as whole residency sessions. And so sort of imagine it sort of as office hours, or simply people could drop in, come have a little chat with me, have a little coffee, perhaps if you're feeling lonely or struggling and want to talk about anything, or want to get more signposting information for even more professional services, bring that out to halls of residences and sort of, spend some time there. And, even beyond halls, just across campuses, there's sort of a lot of focus on University Park and to sort of a lesser extent Jubilee. But that support needs to be available there on Sutton Bonington. It needs to be available there for those that go out to Kings Meadow. It also needs to be available for those that are out in UNAD, which I believe is sort of the most forgotten about campus out of them all. But yeah, just bringing the welfare to students is sort of the way that I would tackle that issue. As I've already mentioned, by increasing sort of the promotion of existing welfare services, and there are good services. It was sort of mentioned, I can't remember who by, that the counselling service is now referral only, which is true, but there are also sort of other services available. Take SU Advice, you've got the student service centres. The university also has a partnership with the Together All scheme, which is provided to all students completely free of charge, can be anonymous if you want. But yeah, just ensuring, that the welfare engagement is proactive, it goes out to the student, and so they don't have to come sort of looking for us in a sense.
And on to our final candidate.
Al, she, her. I think, like you said, there is a lot of confusion around it, and it's not always clear because there's like so many different services, all different things, and it's hard to know what's for you and what is out there. So one of my policy points is having those safe spaces, well-being hubs, where it's a clear place in each school where you can go to, have 5 minutes if that's what you need, if you're having a panic attack, if you're feeling overwhelmed, which would be good for your mental health, but also to get further services if you need it, to have all the information there. And once a week have access to a mental health care professional that can really signpost you in the right direction and make people aware that services are for them. Also, yeah, the university does have connections with CRIPS for mental health services, but to access those you have to jump through quite a lot of hoops, and there's a lot of passing around oh no, that's not, I can't deal with you, I'll pass you to this person. So just a reduction of jumping through those hoops and making it more direct. If you say you need something, being believed and getting you what you need.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of these candidates when it comes to the question time and the end of the candidate Q&A. Can we have a big round of applause for our welfare and wellbeing candidates? You're good. And before we go, I want to say a massive thank you to NSTV, URN, Impact, and Tech for helping us out for our candidate Q&As this evening. And also, can we have a big thank you to all of our candidates who participated today? Thank you to them. And remember, voting opens on the 13th of March at 9 a.m. to the 17th of March at 1 p.m. And if you vote, you can win over £100, or you can win £100 worth of SU vouchers. Thank you very much. You take care. Have a good night.